Hello, how is everyone doing? It is your fallen angel back with another video. Today, we are going over a brief history of mathematical thought, specifically language and purpose. So without further ado, we shall begin. Researchers working with infants and animals have found compelling evidence that we have an innate sense of quantity. More specifically, animals, humans, birds, and many other animals can recognize when a small collection has changed in size, even if they do not observe the change taking place. Think about it, guys. Everyone has a acute sense of memory. Even people that are hoarders. Let's say you move something out of a hoarder's room. They'll be like, where did this thing go? I've been looking for it all day, because there's an acute sense of memory as well. We can see this whether this be the beginning of human species or just other animals. They are very cognitive in the sense that they know about quantity. For example, birds can recognize when one of their eggs is missing. This is more important than some hoarder's junk, obviously. This is one of their children, obviously, even if they had not witnessed the egg's removal. Similarly, when many animals will consistently pick the larger of two collections when they are given a choice. Presumably, this sensitivity to quantity is a necessary precondition for the development of math. And it is interesting to note that some animals are quicker than humans at intuitively sensing differences in quantity. Nevertheless, although such abilities constitute evidence for animal intelligence, it is rather inaccurate to claim that birds count their eggs. I would argue that proto-mathematical thinking can only begin once we have developed language. And that is this kind of understanding is fundamental to many types of human behavior, not just what we ordinarily think as understanding math. Of course, any account of the lifestyle of our Stone Age ancestors is bound to be highly speculative. But despite the lack of conclusive evidence, I think it is helpful to imagine how our ancestors first developed rational capabilities and the enormously complex thing that we call language. Humans are not the only animals to use tools. And for millions of years, our primate ancestors extended their abilities by utilizing what was found at hand. Sticks, stones, fur, leaves, bark, and all manner of foodstuffs were used in playful ways that we can only guess and imagine. Flesh was scraped from fur, sticks were sharp and adapted to a purpose, and stones were knapped to produce effective butchery kits. Most importantly, about 1.8 million years ago, Homo erectus started using fire to cook, which reduced the amount of energy needed for digestion, making it possible to grow larger brains and smaller digestive tracts. As human intelligence evolved, our vocalizations and patterns of interaction developed into something that deserves to be called language. One very plausible speculation is that more intelligent hominins were more successful in making the most from the complex dynamics of their social situation, providing the selective advantage that led to increasing intelligence over time. In any case, communicative aspects of modern language are common to many animals. For example, many animals can convey a state of panic when they see a predator. It is therefore clear that complex, communicative forms of interaction massively predate the development of the proto-mathematical, of any conception that language might be the thing of interest, rather than people who were making the sounds. So we have to also understand this is also a primate kind of primitive sort of notion, whether this be animal or human, to communicate their feelings or to communicate what they're seeing in their external stimuli, whether this be through humming, signals, words, anything. This can be seen through many phenotypes. This idea is worth elaborating. So as an example of how culture of interactions can evolve to something greater, imagine a woman who lives in a community with a particular culture of responses. Men who give me tasty food, will hear me hum, but those who grab me without giving me tasty food will hear me growl. If a man was trying to establish a sexual relationship with this woman, he would want to hear the humming sound, because a woman who hums is much more likely to be interested in sex than a woman who growls. Consequently, the man would willfully do a bit of cooking prior to any sexual advance, acting to establish the circumstances that he associates with the humming sound. So this would be some primitive sort of courting, a courting that happens in modern day dating as well. This is a primitive version of it, right? This is looking for a certain external stimuli to reach a certain end goal, right? This is also how dogs salivate at the idea of a bell ringing, but when there is food. This is a similar notion. By living in such a social context, we came to feel the sense of our own actions. In other words, we responded to changing social occasions with increasingly sophisticated forms of motivated strategy. Everything in this cosmos seems to be motivated either for power or for pleasure, and we're mindful of complex goals whose achievement required actions beyond those in the immediate present. For example, the occasion of preparing an especially tasty meal is not the same occasion as hearing a woman making the humming sound, but we see that one is motivated by the other, right? Intrinsically, the reptilian brain wants to reproduce and survive, so it wants to feed this urge, essentially. We see how communication is building up slowly over time through our desires. Social norms and the vocabulary of praise and blame are both potent forces for shaping the imagination. It is absolutely fundamental that we find words with which to judge our actions, and our judgments work with words. An example of this endlessly subtle process can be found in the following conversation. Let's break into that house. I don't know, that seems like a bad idea. Go on, don't be a chicken. This sense of potent vocabulary shaping the imagination, social norms saying, don't be a coward doing this, right? Don't be a pussy, etc., etc., to get someone to do something, to coerce, to coax, to use blandishments in this kind of sense. We are fearful that our reasoning will compel us to name ourselves cowards, idiots, or many other kinds of undesired utterance. The will to avoid such experience is part of our humanity, as in the compelling nature of the reasons that we find. Also, an ideology is to protect or maintain the ego, what we know as the limbic system or the horse brain. As Blaise Pascal observed, we are most compelled by the reasons of our own devising, but such complexities can be closely shared and instinctively taught to others. The caveman is compelled by the fact that the woman has established reasons for growling. If he fails to meet the expectations of an established practice, it is a process of judgment that he has a feeling for, and the weight of utterance is that it is not felt to be arbitrary. Similarly, our potential thief is pulled by the fact that he too can reason himself a coward and does not wish to do so. However, it is crucial to note that in each of these examples, the significance of an utterance is inseparable from the fact that another person has decided to say the statement in question. In other words, we reach the point of very sophisticated communication long before we ever considered what we know today as language, as a thing in itself, separate from the people who were speaking. With that being said, guys, this has been a brief history of mathematical thought, specifically the beginning of language and purpose. We'll go more in deep to mathematical thought later on. So feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. Check us out on Patreon, Rumble, Twitter, Instagram, things of that nature. This has been your fallen angel, and I am out.